Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
Some people do stupid things. Don't do stupid things. You are about to hear my opinion. Do your own research.
This is a groundbreaking discovery that has completely revolutionized our understanding of the origins of humankind. In 2013, two cave explorers, Stephen Tucker and Rick Hunter, ventured into a complex cave system in South Africa named Rising Star. During their cave exploration, they bravely penetrated into a perilous underground chamber that no one had dared to venture into before due to its narrow 18 centimeters entrance. Their courage was richly rewarded as they stumbled upon an astonishing sight that left scientists worldwide astonished. Before their eyes lay numerous scattered human skeletal remains in the chamber. Immediately, the two explorers returned and contacted a team of scientists to jointly investigate the origins of these bones. After extensive collection and meticulous analysis, the scientists made an extraordinary announcement. These were the remains of an entirely new human species previously unknown to us. They named this species Homo naledi. This ancient group has a very peculiar appearance. Their average height is only 1.48 meters with a slender figure but remarkably wide hips, resembling the descriptions of dwarf tribes in ancient civilizations' records.
As usual, I'm late to the party, but I'm only a little over a decade late to this particular party because this is brand new news to me. I didn't know that they found some skeletons that very could possibly change, what we think our evolutionary path was. I personally still think that there's aliens involved somewhere.
In 2009, deep in a Spanish lab, scientists unlocked a secret humanity wasn't ready for. They brought back something extinct. The Pyrenean ibex, a wild mountain goat gone since 2000. Its last breath was taken in the rugged cliffs of northern Spain. But they had a plan. Sound of liquid nitrogen hissing. Skin samples frozen in time, preserved in liquid nitrogen. A genetic ghost waiting to be reborn. They called it cloning, a spark of life from a species long dead. The process was grueling. Hundreds of failed attempts, embryos that never took. But then it happened. A newborn ibex trembling alive, the first extinct creature to breathe again. For 7 minutes, its lungs collapsed. A defect, they said. The creature gasped, then faded. But here's the thing, those scientists, they didn't stop. They're still out there in labs chasing ghosts. Mammoths, moas, maybe more. What happens when they succeed? When something older, wilder comes back? And what if it's not just animals they're bringing back? The files are sealed, but the signal's still live. What do you think is next?
They did what? Where? When? How come we don't know this? Well, I'm sure other people know this because I don't know these things, but they're doing this stuff in other countries. I know here in the States, we did the whole Dolly thing, right? We cloned the sheep back a while back, and now we're like de-extincting stuff. Why? I understand, it's in the name of science and progress and learning to do crap that we couldn't do before, but why are these things essential? Why is there so much money put into bringing back things that nature obviously decided should not be here?
Summer of 2021, power companies in Texas automatically raised the temperature of so-called smart thermostats in thousands of homes to help save energy during a heatwave. Most people had no idea that their home temperature had been raised, nor that the power company's ability to do this was outlined in the fine print of their contracts. Now, if this sounds scary, well, it barely scratches the surface of what the World Economic Forum has planned with its smart cities. Let's start with a definition of what a smart city is. Now, the best definition I could find comes from Wikipedia. It's quite lengthy, but it needs to be repeated because it captures the full scope of what smart cities are. Quote, "A smart city is a technologically modern urban area that uses different types of electronic methods and sensors to collect specific data. Information gained from that data is used to manage assets, resources, and services efficiently. That data is used to improve operations across the city. This includes data collected from citizens, devices, buildings, and assets that is processed and analyzed to monitor and manage transportation systems, power plants, utilities, water supply networks, waste, criminal investigations, schools, libraries, hospitals, and other community services. Smart cities are defined as smart both in the ways in which their governments harness technology as well as in how they monitor, analyze, plan, and govern the city. In smart cities, the sharing of data is not limited to the city itself, but also includes businesses, citizens, and other third parties. End quote. In short, then, a smart city is a place where everything you do is tracked and managed by the government, including what you do at home. This is possible because almost every single modern home appliance has internet connectivity, not just thermostats. Fridges, microwaves, TVs, cars, and even home entry systems are all connected these days. In other words, smart cities are the dictionary definition of a digital dystopia. Now, it's important to note that smart cities and 15-minute cities are not the same thing.
All right, so I have this brilliant idea. These World Economic Forum jerk-offs have like all of this money and they're saying this is what we need to do. They should create the little city and put themselves in it and not have their private jets and not have their lap of luxury and just do what they're saying that everybody else should do. And then we should like put a dome over them or something.
Do you know that the government can legally take your home even if you don't want to sell? All they need to do is an excuse like public interest or economic development. Now, they're getting more creative with new ways to make money off your home. Ever heard of a 15-minute city? Sounds great, right? Walkable areas, easy access to everything. But let's take a closer look and you'll see the catch. You'll see more restrictions on property rights, more zoning laws that control what you can and cannot do with your own land, and more policies discouraging private ownership in favor of government-controlled housing. And that is just one example. Let's talk about imminent domain abuse. Do you know that the government can legally take your home even if you don't want to sell? All they need to do is an excuse like public interest or economic development. And on top of it, they don't even need to pay you fair market price. Bottom line is, your house isn't fully yours if someone else can take it away from you whenever they feel like it.
So the city I currently live in is an extremely urban and very highly populated area. But when I was a child, actually not even a child, when I was a teenager, this whole area was dairy farms. I used to drive around the little tiny roads in the dairy farms and do teenager crap. And now it's all houses and little tightly packed houses. And just down the street, there's a place where people keep like their trailers and boats and stuff like that because you're not allowed to have them in the driveway at your house, which is a stupid rule because the city can just make whatever rules they want for whyever they want and you have to follow them. So this property, I was talking to the owner and they owned like a lot more property, but the city just came in and eminent domain and they turned it into a damn park, even though there is a huge park across the street and just half a mile away. But no, the city's like, hey, we need another park. Let's just take their land. It's happening all over the place. Oh, and what is absolutely crazy, the part that the city gave back to them, it floods every year, really bad. What a dick move.
Looked into the C40 websites. The C40 is the consortium of municipalities that have signed on to the 15-minute city plan. And I read in their own documentation, this is relevant to the tri-state city idea, that their goals are to reduce caloric consumption to 2,500 calories a day by force, essentially, within the next 15 years, to ensure that the peasant class, which is everybody but the elitists, can't fly more than one time every 3 years, to not merely shift private car ownership from fossil fuel to electric, which is fundamentally impossible because the grid can't handle it, but to eliminate 90% of private car ownership so that people are forced to take unbelievably expensive in terms of time utilization and non-existent public transportation systems, and to limit the amount of travel that people can do outside of their neighborhoods. And, and then I watch the legacy media claim that pointing that out is something akin to a right-wing conspiracy, which it most certainly isn't, because you can just find the bloody documentation online. And then I look at places like China, which have taken this to an extreme. 600 million closed-circuit TV cameras in China. 1 for every 1.5 persons watching the Chinese all the time, able to monitor them 100% by face, and also to identify them by gait, and to limit their ability to do absolutely anything, to buy, to sell, to travel, to move, to leave their neighborhood, with this top-down surveillance system that perversely and consciously some of the Chinese engineers have actually named Skynet. And in a conscious attempt to produce a positive version of, the absolutely catastrophic, apocalyptic artificial intelligence that was in the bloody Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And you can't even talk about this stuff without sounding like a raving conspiratorialist, but there it is.
That stuff is happening. Like, they're creeping up on us a little bit here in the States with all of this surveillance. And, it has its good sides and it has its bad sides, like, deterring criminals, right? But the bad side is it turns everybody into one thing. There's no individuality. But my brain really stuck on that whole 2,500 calories a day thing. And you think about the stuff that they want you to be eating, which is produce, mostly, and very small portions of meat, not very regularly, but that makes me think of Bill Gates buying up all that farmland, right? Because when these go into play, what is everybody gonna eat? All the stupid farmland stuff. The plants, which are dumb. I hate plants, but that's what they're trying to do, and it just comes together like, okay, he's buying up all this farmland, he's gonna make plants, everybody's gonna have to eat plants, Bill Gates gets even richer, which is not surprising. All of these super rich people have already figured this out. That's the direction that we are going, and they are getting ready for it. Yeah.
They're bringing back the woolly mammoth for what purpose?
That one is for a plethora of reasons, but the main one is to combat climate change, because woolly mammoth stomping in ice returns the Arctic tundra to more of what it used to be, which is like an icy plains as opposed to a wooded area. And it's complicated. You can read about it, but long story short, by them knocking over trees and crushing down the snowpack, which creates like an igloo, a warming effect, that can cool the Earth up to 6 degrees, which is a lot, which slows down the melting of the permafrost, which is what's releasing so many carbon emissions into the atmosphere in the Arctic. So it's a whole cyclical thing that helps combat global warming.
What kind of benefit does the company get out of that?
They will make billions and billions of dollars in carbon offset credits if they're successful.
What is that, a government type of funding?
Carbon offset credit is if you can prove that you are combating the amount of carbon emissions that we're putting into the air, then you get paid a credit. And so, yeah, it's I don't know. I don't think it's government. It's more like global.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I very probably am, but if you have a carbon emission credit, doesn't that credit allow you to emit a certain amount of carbon? So if they're making all of these woolly mammoths to stomp down the ice, which is going to take hundreds of years to have enough woolly mammoths to cover this amount of area, if we are actually able to bring the woolly mammoths back, which I think is dumb, wouldn't the company that's, doing all of that just be permitted to emit more carbon into the atmosphere? So it's kind of a wash. So it takes hundreds of years to help with this 6 degree difference, and then this company just gets to go ahead and wipe it all out. How does that make sense?
No alien life form has ever or will ever get to this planet. Now, unless they have faster than light travel, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Because this is the problem, right? This is a simple problem. The nearest star to our star, which is called Sol, is called Proxima Centauri. Proxima meaning it's the closest star. It is 4.1 light years away, which is over 24 trillion, with a T, like in Tommy, trillion miles away. It would take, at the speed of light, it would take 4.1 years to get there. We can't even go 1% the speed of light. So let's just say by some miracle, we end up developing, on the show The Expanse, an Epstein drive that lets us go 1% the speed of light. Now it's only 400 years for us to get to the nearest star.
Right.
And the likelihood of there being life near the nearest star is 1 in 10,000. So it's pretty more than 100,000. There is life. There are aliens. There are living creatures on other planets. They're just so they're just so astronomically far away from us. We're just not going to get there. We're not going to see them. So that's the issue. We know they exist because with the new James Webb Telescope and other telescopes, we're able to see that there's other planets that are within the Goldilocks zone that have methane, oxygen, carbon dioxide, things like that.
Yeah, they have all the molecules for life.
Yeah, they're correct. And so because of that, the likelihood that none of them would have ever had life, it's just too small. It seems silly. The other one is the theory about panspermia.
What is that? For anybody who doesn't know, what is that?
Yeah, panspermia is one of my favorite theories because it's very hard to falsify this. So the idea is there's this thing called a tardigrade. It's called a water bear. And we found them, scientists found them frozen at the North Pole and thawed them out, and they lived after being frozen for thousands of years. So somebody came up with a crazy idea. What if we put these tardigrades in hard vacuum? Meaning, like, put them up in the ISS. These things are microscopic. You can't see them.
Yeah. They're tiny.
Hundreds of them would live in like a little drop of water. So what if we put these little tardigrades in hard vacuum? So let's take them out to the ISS. We'll leave them out in hard vacuum for like a couple of hours and let's see what happened. And they fucking lived, dude. They lived.
Silly human. See, this iteration of our species hasn't gotten smart enough to realize we're focusing on relative knowledge. It's stuff that we know is factual to us now. We're constantly learning that stuff is possible that we never knew was possible. So who knows how far advanced other creatures on other planets in other galaxies are? We don't know. We just know what we think we know based on what we experience. Case in point, these little tardigrades. We didn't know that they can survive these harsh conditions, but suddenly now we know. But 10 years ago, that was impossible. So, space-time travel is impossible because we can't do it. No. Just because we can't do it doesn't mean that it cannot be done.
This incredible site called Ain Dara in Syria, not only is it unlike anything else in that region, but before we were able to even study it, the Turkish government destroyed it in 2018 as an accident, they state. Now, what's so crazy about this place is that when they first discovered it, they found this multi-ton massive basalt lion buried, and that's the only reason they found it was because his head was sticking above the ground. It was like under these layers of soil. They realized that the entire temple was built out of basalt. And as far as they know, there's very few places in the world that you can even see that. Because basalt is so hard. But it mimics the same use of basalt that we find at the Lake Von Ararat civilization. With Kavis Tepe and Kefkalesi, they only used basalt there. So it's interesting that we're finding the same lion depictions and the same depictions from that region all of a sudden that we are here, showing you evidence of the way they went. If you imagine that these sons and these sages, these creators of these civilizations, are creating something and then moving on.
That makes me wonder what was happening in that particular region to make these people, migrate from there. Did like the climate change or something? Because the continents are constantly shifting, right? There's always moving stuff, and maybe over hundreds and hundreds of years they were like, hey, we can't live here anymore, let's go somewhere else. And then they did the same thing. So that makes a lot of sense. But why the Turkish government would decide that certain things need to be destroyed makes me think they're hiding something. Should make everybody think that somebody is hiding something when they go and destroy something from the past. Like they don't want the future to know what may have potentially happened on this site. Yeah, I would love to not have things destroyed, but at the same time, we're speculating on all of this stuff anyway, because we don't know for sure.
This metallic, weird-looking sphere fell from the sky in Boca, Colombia. 2 locals found it. One of them got violently ill after touching it, but they said it felt like a refrigerator upon the touch, but when they poured water on it, it would steam like it was hot. I'm calling this a UFO because it's an unidentified flying object that fell out of the sky. The mysterious object is smooth, about 4.5 pounds, has no screw marks, no weld marks, no signs that it's made by humans. And then when scientists looked inside, they found 18 microspheres arranged in a circle, a central chip like a processing core, and then 3 outer layers of metal. Keep the markings on the sphere. These are ancient Mesopotamian symbols. We ran them through AI because of course we did. And the message? The origin of birth through union and energy, the cycle of transformation, unity, expansion, and individual consciousness. The hell does that mean? I'm taking it as, hey humans, it's time to level up your vibes so that they match the Earth's. What intrigues me even more about this sphere is that it didn't just land anywhere. No, this spot in Colombia is known for miracles. People travel from all over the world to this specific area for miracles, and this sphere fell out of the sky. The biggest question is, where did this sphere come from? It fell from the sky, so did it come from outer space, or did it come up from the ocean that's unexplored on the Pacific coast right there and happen to land in Colombia? Because you already know I think that aliens are underwater. I think they have bases underwater, and I have a whole list of them, but we'll talk about that another time.
So yesterday we talked about Stephen Greer having the boogosphere and doing like tests and stuff on it, and then I realized I don't know a whole lot about this whole boogosphere stuff. So I went diving, looking for stuff, and apparently it's super incredible. Like, I didn't know the area that it was found in is known for miracles. That's fascinating. And the whole fact that it was cold when it touched it, but you pour water on it and it starts steaming. And the whole AI translation, hello. Wow, maybe they're communicating like in the same way. I mean, if it is alien, which I am inclined to believe, maybe they're communicating in the same way that we communicated with that whole record thing that we sent. It's all in, math. Like, aliens have record players and they can play the record and decipher our math. Maybe that's why they sent it with their, technology, what they think is smart stuff. And our AI is like, hey, this is what it says. What if our AI is wrong? Okay, I got a lot of things going on in my brain about this boogosphere.
The boogosphere from Colombia is really quite interesting. It's something that I started to research almost immediately as we'd seen depictions of these type of things, not only in shows like Skinwalker Ranch, but also in the artifacts from Mexico. And the team sent me these photos and gave me a breakdown on some of the science that's been done on these things, and it's absolutely incredible. This thing is gaining weight or changing weight. It's got a very interesting core inside of it. The metal and the way it's formed around, as you can see in the x-rays, is very, very unique, and it's unlike anything like these lab technicians have ever seen. There's a lot of little cores inside the nucleus of this thing. It is very, very hard, harder than aerospace aluminum. It's got a homogeneous number of holes, 32 holes that go around it, and it's almost as if it's got to have those there to breathe or to, however it's adjusting to the environment. This thing is not just something that was found in the ground either. This was seen flying through the sky and a large electrical discharge coming out of it as it fell to the ground. And, there's actually footage of this thing flying through the air. It's definitely a mystery, not one that needs to be dismissed. Seeing popular TV shows come out saying that this thing is fake, just like the pieces that we found in Mexico, it really makes you wonder the motives and the aspirations behind this science and why they would claim this with such certainty when clearly we are seeing things that stump the science and the experts in this field. Seeing it pop up in People and on different things, Apple News, Fox News, it was everywhere yesterday, and it says it's stumping scientists. It's definitely not something that we can write off as 100% hoax, and that's exactly what some of these experts have said. So I'll wait for the information and the science, and I hope you guys will too.
So prior to yesterday on this channel, the only clip that I had shown was of the boogosphere flying, and it was somebody saying, hey, it's probably fake because you don't see above it and something is probably holding it down. And then my brain is like, I don't question silver orbs. I don't. And now my brain doesn't know what to do because that looks fantastic. Those images, it makes it look so old and worn, like it traveled through space or something. I don't know. But then again, we have the technology to make stuff like this look like that. How? So many questions. I have so many questions, and I can't wait to find out if this is a real thing or if there's like a bunch of college students sitting around just yucking it up.
Nobody knows who built the megaliths, but we do know that they were all using the same technique, which is referred to today by archaeologists as Cyclopean masonry. And the Cyclopean style involves large stones, sometimes square or rectangular, sometimes polygonal, that are fitted together so precisely that there's no need for a bonding agent. There's no need for some cement or mortar. And this kind of masonry is advanced. It's exceedingly advanced. It's not something that is easily accomplished, especially with stones that weigh sometimes in excess of 100 tons, sometimes in excess of 300 tons. These kinds of cyclopean megaliths are found all over the earth. And I think what it suggests is that either we're looking at the same builders or we're looking at different cultures who are using the same technology, who had the same knowledge. And it's very ancient. It's much more ancient than the Inca. And I think it's much more ancient than the Egyptians. I think we're looking at a technology, we're looking at knowledge that originates in the antediluvian world. So the question is, who built them? And that's a question that nobody knows. There's people out there who pretend to know, but they don't. Nobody knows. It's a complete mystery. And there are many possibilities.
I'm going to pretend to know. Previous advanced civilizations inhabited the earth, like widely, and they all worked together in some way or another, and they had this method of building stuff because they were advanced technologically in one way or another. And then the poles reset and wiped all the people out, but we still have their stuff that's built. And that's what I pretend to know.
Well, no, because Abraham Lincoln mentioned them.
He did.
When he did a speech at Niagara Falls.
He did.
Yeah, like we stand where the giants stood.
I can pull it up. It says here, the eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. So in other
Abraham
words,
freaking Lincoln
was talking about the giant bones inside the
mounds that
Yeah.
we see all over America. You know, we call them Native American mounds. Some of them, maybe.
But not these.
But the large ones, the massive ones that we're still today like, well, how did they use sticks and rocks to make these, right? How is that even possible? That would have taken, this many man hours and that kind of stuff. Like, and Abraham Lincoln was like,
I know about them. Don't you know about them?
And inside of them are filled with bones of giants.
Yeah.
Hello? Maybe that's what it was. A previous civilization of giants when the continents were all one supercontinent like Pangea, or even before Pangea. Have you seen those maps? We're going to have to talk about that sometime because there was like times where the continents did all crazy things and became together many times. So we think anyway. And maybe Abraham Lincoln was just speaking metaphorically. It's possible. On that note, I'm calling it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you haven't already, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. Then come on back, because we're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things, and it's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.
I scroll through static in a velvet robe. Aliens close.